You know, it didn't really occur to me how deep this rabbit hole went with black women and racist or downright evil white men until I saw both that black hood chick in St. Louis crying her eyes out and bawling like a baby over that dead North County police officer that was gunned down by Pookie. And a video clip that was sent to me by one of you guys a few days ago, since I've been covering this whole police and black women issue, where this older black female in her 50s leapt out of a car after calling 911, seeing this white dude attack this white police officer. And she risked her life jumping on the back of this perpetrator while he was attacking and beating the cop's ass. And she even moved his hand. She used her hands to remove his hand from the white police officer's gun because he was going for the cop's gun while jumping on his back just to save this white officer's life. And this is a woman, this is a female that I'm sure has seen many a Negro get beat down by other Negroes. She has probably heard of many a Negro, this happened in Baton Rouge, get gunned down by many other Negroes. Yet here she is willing to save the life of a white man with a badge, to the point where she would literally put her own life at risk by jumping on this suspect's back that was attacking this cop while struggling to keep his hand off of the officer's weapon. Now, we know about, we've covered this, the history of black women during slavery and Jim Crow and white men during those same time periods. As a matter of fact, I've explained to you guys that even before the Loving decision in the U.S. Supreme Court that they made a movie about a couple of years ago, it was actually customary for white men to drive into black neighborhoods, including Harlem and, yes, Tulsa, Oklahoma, back when they had Black Wall Street, looking for black pussy or black pussy that he was already fucking. And we're not just talking about prostitutes. These men actually had girlfriends and mistresses that they were cheating on their white wives with. This is well-known knowledge. In fact, I also explained that the very term honky is derived from a time period when white men would drive their cars into these black neighborhoods and honk their horns for their black bedwench mistresses and girlfriends to come out of the house or wherever they were supposed to be coming out from, if they were taking them on a date or, to answer a booty call. This was so common that black men and the overall black community came up with this term for white men who did this, calling them honkies, because again, they would honk their horns. So it is not lost on me, you know, that this is something that has been going on for quite a while. I mean, when you look at all the black women of note back during that time period, you know, Lena Horne, Eartha Kitt, Dorothy Dandridge, again, we've been down this. Almost all of them wound up having affairs with or marrying white men. Dorothy Dandridge, I believe, after Otto Herman, she got with some hotel manager, white dude, to beat the crap out of her. He beat her ass. I remember seeing that in the movie where Halle Berry played her. And even after she broke up with him, she still got with another white dude. So black women have a long history as the mammies and mistresses of the white community. Not only did she nurture and take care of the white man's children, she took care of and nurtured parts of him too. But we ain't gonna go there because this is ScrewTube. So when you understand this, you understand the history of black women with white men. You understand many things that come along with that, including this myth that black women that had biracial children were all raped or sexually assaulted by white men. You understand that that is it's far-fetched. Of course, sure, there were some rapes. Nobody's denying that. But when you look at the amount of biracial people that we see just in this country, in this society alone, okay, and you know that black men only started to have access to white women, you know, where they could openly court a white woman like 30, maybe 40 years ago, even 50 years ago. If a black man was caught, you know, in the wrong place with a white woman, he could be in serious fucking trouble. So and then you understand that older biracial people, in many cases, not in all cases, some of it is black men with white women, but in a lot of cases, older generations of biracial people, like Rosa Parks or Stacey Dash, just some random individual names that are well known. These, for the most part, are products of black women having consensual sexual relationships with white men. And not only white men, but racist and evil and diabolical white men. I told you guys, and some of you may recall this, as a matter of fact, I think this was on my original Brian Solange channel, before it got caught up in that hit list by Simone 50 Tricks back in 2016, 2017. You may recall that I said that if somebody like Adolf Hitler came back from the dead and he put on a t-shirt, or he threw up a black power fist and said that he loves chocolate girls, these females would be flocking to him. They would be getting on their knees. And a lot of people didn't like this. But right after this video is done, after a few days, I'm going to prove to you that what I say is absolutely true. And we saw the picture that David Carroll put up several years ago of these two random black whores throwing up the Nazi salute. We saw that. But what you didn't see was, and this is really black people in general, it shows you how lost in the head we truly are, and why, unfortunately, as a collective, we will always be slaves, at least as long as you and my lifespan extends. There's a line that a black pastor made back when Donald Trump was running for office, and I believe at that point he had won the RNC, the Republican nomination. There was a statement that a black pastor in Chicago made, when that whole league of black pastors, they got together, led by that pastor, I forget his name, Meeks or something like that, in Detroit, and he was trying to get Trump's attention by talking about he was lying about meeting with black gang members in Chicago, and them telling him that they were willing to meet and work with Donald Trump, trying to stroke his ego and everything, because he wanted to be the first Negro to lick Trump's boots or whatever. And there was this one pastor that called himself disagreeing with Reverend Meeks. I believe that's his name. Don't quote me. I don't pay attention to these fools. The only way I know him is, through little news clippings that I see in videos that are made here in the Black Manosphere. But I believe it was Vice that interviewed this pastor that disagreed with Reverend Meeks, who didn't like the idea of another pastor coming into his territory and claiming that he had more of a connection with the guys on the street than, the black church that was actually in Chi-Town did. And he made this statement about Adolf Hitler, that after, the young black girl that was interviewing him, that you simply have to see this to believe it. You have to see it to believe it. Now, we all know, and again, I've said in the past that I don't wholly disagree with everything that was, that Hitler said. That's not hate speech, even though I know a lot of people will spin it that way. I have a right to agree and disagree with whatever I so choose, okay? But we all know, as a broader collective, what Hitler and the Nazis are known for across Europe and in Germany, okay? So, to say what this pastor said to this interviewer, that again I believe was from Vice, it really helps you know where Negroes are psychologically in this society that we live in. It helps you know why they are always looking for handouts from someone else. And it helps you know why, it better explains why black women seem to be, and dark-skinned black women at that. You notice, and I've noticed this, it's not too many light-skinned broads, like biracial broads that we see. Y'all remember that fool-ass whore, Nikki McElroy, that made that stupid book, 18 ways to date a white man or attract a white man, some stupid shit like that, back in 2011. She was sitting up there with some other whores, and it was her and a slightly lighter skinned, but mostly like caramel skinned black chick that were defending the idea of black women dating interracially. While it was a light-skinned broad, the light-skinned broad was the only one on the show that was standing up for black men. When, in that interview, I think they were interviewed by Everyway Woman or something, some pro-black feminist channel that used to be popular back in the early days of like Tommy Sotomayor or whatever. And it was so repugnant that it even upset the Hodge twins. Y'all, I know y'all know them, popular biracial YouTubers. That one of the Hodge twins went off about the two black females that were kissing white ass, even though they were biracial themselves. But getting back to my point, you will notice as seen in this collage that it's mostly dark-skinned black women that are with these racist white men. Just like there was a dark-skinned black pastor that said this thing that I'm going to show you what he said in the next video about Adolf Hitler. Okay? So it is not surprising to me when I look at the history, starting in, this eerie relationship that was even kind of attested to. It was mentioned even back in that movie that Halle Berry won Best Actress for being Billy Bob Thornton's penis holster in Monsters Ball. You remember that? When when the father of Billy Bob Thornton, she encountered him in the house. And he was sitting in a rocking chair or wheelchair, and she had bought a gift for, Billy Bob Thornton after they fucked a couple of times. It was like a cowboy hat. And the father said, "Oh, I'll take that. My son ain't here right now." But when he looked at her, he was obviously racist. He said, "Oh, well, that's what my son is doing now, huh?" He said, "In my prime," I'm telling you what he said in the movie. He said, "In my prime, I had a thing for nigger juice too. A white man just don't feel like a man until he split dark oak." Go back and watch the movie. And when she heard him say that, she was offended and she got teary-eyed and ran out the house, right? And then Billy Bob Thornton's character, he got upset at his father and put him in a nursing home for saying that to his black concubine, right? But what were in that movie, and I told niggas this on several occasions, but they don't listen. Hollywood pokes fun at black dysfunction all the time. The mere fact that Halle Berry won this, of all the movies she did, she won an Academy Award for being a racist white man's cum dumpster in a movie that was, it was as close to being pornographic in a major motion picture film that isn't considered X-rated as I've ever seen. Some rumors said that Billy Bob actually went inside of her. I don't know. Okay, they claim that the sex scenes are just choreographed to look real, but aren't. Like the actors have, tissue or towels or something between their genitals, but that shit looked real. I'm just saying, it sounded real, it looked real. I don't know. I know they do some stuff in those movies for real. Some of it is just, it's choreographed to look that way. Cinematography, I believe, is the word. But what were Billy Bob Thornton and his son's characters? And I believe Heath Ledger, the one who died of that drug overdose, he was in that movie too. What were they in that movie? His father was a retired prison guard. And he was a prison guard at some southern prison where they put prisoners to death. I believe it was either Louisiana or Mississippi. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Billy Bob Thornton's character had just got done assisting in executing Halle Berry's character's baby daddy, who had been on death row, right? She had met, at the beginning of the movie, she had met with her baby daddy just before he was supposed to be executed in the holding cell, played by Sean Puffy Combs, before they put him in the electric chair. You remember that? And, they were basically discussing what was going to happen with their son, who was later hit and killed in the movie. That's how she wound up meeting Billy Bob Thornton, because he pulled over after seeing her lying by her son dead on the road crying for help, right? But in the movie, Billy Bob Thornton's character, the prison guard, assisted in executing her black baby daddy, played by Sean Puffy Combs. And then later on, he's fucking her in the same house where he ran two black kids off of his property with a shotgun because they were playing on his front lawn earlier in the movie. So they were indicating, obviously, that Billy Bob Thornton and his father were racist as fuck. Yet they had no problem fucking black women. And you know, it's equivalent to that Arab guy. I forget his name, Omar Mateen, or one of them nutcases, them ISIS sympathizing nutcases that went off and shot up the Pulse nightclub. You remember? When the FBI cracked into his Apple iPhone, they looked in his phone and they found that he had gay dating website apps on his phone, and he had actually visited several gay bars, including Pulse nightclub. He had actually set up dates with gay men in the Orlando area. And one of the arguments was that he did that because he was trying to find targets for his rampage. You know, he was trying to find out where gay men congregated so he could attack it. But then they said, well, this is just too extensive. This is more than just, him staking out a place. This looks like something that he was actually involved in. And so what the working theory was that Omar Mateen, I believe that's his name, he was really trying to kill elements of himself. He was trying to kill the very thing that he was attracted to, because he had problems dealing with his sexuality. And you see the exact same thing with these white guys, including these white police officers, okay, that are, in one case, you had a white guy back in the mid-90s, I believe 1995, the same year the Million Man March. He killed a homeless streetwise vendor in Chicago. Those of you from Chicago, they used to have, I don't know if they still do, they have those homeless guys on the street. They give them a job selling newspapers, streetwise newspapers, kind of like, the black Muslims give those black Fruit of Islam guys bean pies and Muhammad Speaks newspapers to sell on the street. And this white cop, he was out with a black woman named Joey Preston that he was, don't ask me what the first name is about, but that was her name. She testified in his trial. And they were stumbling out of a bar. And they were approached by this black homeless guy, at least that's what they said, that offered to wash their windows. And this white guy who was having an affair on his wife, what was his name? Gregory Dickerson or something like that. And the black guy was John Gold or something like that, Joshua Gold or something like that. But they were stumbling out of a bar, and this homeless streetwise vendor, he offered to wash the dude's window. And the white cop, off-duty police officer, he was telling him to, get the fuck out of his face, just being real rude, telling him to go wash his, go wash himself before he tries to wash people's cars. That's what witnesses were saying, that he was drunk and he was being an asshole. Now, if you don't want your car washed, that's fine, but you don't have to be an asshole about it. So the streetwise vendor, he got angry and they got into a confrontation. They got into a verbal argument, and then the white off-duty officer, he pulled out a gun and he shot the streetwise vendor in the head, killed him in front of everybody, including the black mistress that he was cheating on his wife with. And initially, Joey Preston, that was her name, she sided with her white off-duty cop boyfriend, saying that the streetwise vendor was being, aggressive, and that he was probably just angry that, the white cop was with a black woman. But then it turned out later that she changed her story up, and she claimed that, he was being racist. And, as a matter of fact, from the time they came out of the bar, he was saying something to this dude, and that's how the whole confrontation actually started. It didn't start with him following them out of the bar. It started with her boyfriend talking shit to the streetwise vendor before the confrontation escalated to murder one. And so this cop, he wound up getting 15 years in prison. I don't know how much of that time he served, but he was sentenced in 97, so he would have got out 2007. He would have got out about 2012, I'm thinking. Okay. Then, of course, we know about the incident at the Kroger in or near Louisville, Kentucky, where there was a white guy, the one in the yellow shirt. He executed two older black people, one black woman and one black man. In that case, he actually, after he was arrested, it was actually found out that several of his former black girlfriends and wives came forward saying that they were shocked. Well, some of them claimed they were shocked that he did it, and then others were saying that they weren't too surprised that he did it because of his personality. But it came out that this racially motivated killer actually had several black girlfriends and black wives that he was dating in or screwing or had married in the Louisville, Kentucky area throughout his life. He was into black women. And then you had the case in New York City where Abner Loima, this Haitian immigrant, was brutally assaulted and sodomized by these four cops from the 70th precinct in New York City. I forget which borough that was, but it turned out later that the chief suspect in the assault of the four NYPD officers, this Italian Guido Greaseball by the name of Justin Volpe, I believe, he had actually been the one to shove a nightstick up the rectum of Loima during the beating and badly injured Loima. And during the public relations nightmare for the NYPD, it came out that he had a dark-skinned black girlfriend that ran immediately to his defense and said that she couldn't imagine him doing anything like this, even though he nearly killed this man. And then, of course, we recall the case in Mississippi recently where the white police officer, he killed his black girlfriend that he was cheating on his wife with, that he had even bought a car for, okay, in some type of domestic dispute. Matthew Kinney, I believe his name was, right? And it was well known that they had been having this affair for a long time. It was only after he murdered her that her black female relatives, including her mother, seemed to have a problem with it. They claimed that they were trying to get him away from her. They were trying to get her away from him, but it was pretty obvious that they didn't have a problem with it the whole time that they were together, because he was buying her gifts. And in this day and age, when so many black women claim to be down with the swirl, somehow I highly doubt that they were trying to really get this woman away from this dude, even though there were indications that he was physically abusing her. They were probably high-fiving her and asking her to give them some pointers on how they could snag them a white man. Okay? And then, of course, we had the incident in South Carolina where we saw a black cop yanking this little thought bot out of a chair. Now, granted, she was being an unruly little heifer, but that video aroused a lot of controversy around social media and around the nation. It came out later that not the cop himself, who was later fired for doing what he did, but he wasn't charged with assault. His police chief, the police chief of that department, came out, and he was trying to defend the indications against the officer that he was racist, even after he got fired, by saying, "Oh, Officer so-and-so couldn't be racist because he has a black girlfriend." This is what the chief actually said at a press conference, right? And so there was a massive search on Google at that time looking for this black girlfriend of this white cop in South Carolina that yanked this black girl out from under her school desk and chair because she refused to get up and leave the classroom for being unruly at a high school. But I don't think any images of his black girlfriend ever came out. I think there were some mock images, but nobody actually found the real images. But he never denied having a black girlfriend, from what the police chief said. And the fact that the police chief knew this personal information about his former officer indicates to me that this officer must have either known him personally, like off of work, or her personally, or both. Or this is something that's common in that area with white police officers in South Carolina and black women. Oh, yeah, we all fuck black women. Didn't you know we couldn't be racist? Even though we gunned down unarmed black men for having a cell phone in their hand. And then there was the case in Florida. And this one really got me. Where you saw this dark-skinned ghetto gagger that was testifying at an arbitration hearing for this white Florida police officer. You see him down there together, bottom left, that was caught exchanging racist texts and emails with other officers in that department, that particular police agency in Florida, of Ku Klux Klan robes and, burning crosses and mock executions of black men. And they had one fake picture of a black man with a rope or a chain tied around his neck, hooked up to the back of a police vehicle. These guys were obviously racist as living fuck. But when they fired this officer, okay, they fired all four of them motherfuckers. But one of them, he wanted to get his job back. So he agreed to an arbitration trial where he could possibly negotiate terms for him to be reemployed by that particular department. And during that arbitration trial, he chose to bring a witness to, that in his mind would prove that he's not racist. And who the fuck came to his defense? A black bitch. I'm sorry. I had to say the B word on that one. I really don't. At this point, we know what YouTube is on. I really don't give a fuck. It is what it is. Okay? And this black bitch actually stood there and raised her right hand and swore under oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And then started off in her fake Valley Girl accent defending this dude that was sending racist pictures of what he really thought of black men in an era where we are seeing black men getting brutalized and outright murdered, shot in the back by these cops, as we seen in one case in North Charleston, South Carolina, as y'all recall, back in 2015. And that cop only got 20 fucking years for shooting that dude in the back 8 times. She would actually stand there and defend this guy and deny that he was racist. She was like a pre-Candace Owens. And in her mind, this guy could do no wrong. And you have to know, just like in the Madison Amelia case, you have to know that she knew something about this dude and his racism. You have to know if he was exchanging his, what was really on his mind about what he thought about black men as a collective in emails and texts with other white racist police officers. You know damn well the bitch that he was putting his penis in and skeeting in her mouth, and she was probably swallowing it. You know damn well that he was exchanging some of the way he felt with her as well. You know she knew about his, his racial mindset. And you know there's probably a good chance that she was co-signing that shit. And she went out of her way, just like that black female in Baton Rouge, to come, just like those black females in Missouri, that was all over that cop that was laying there in a pool of his own blood after they called the police on this Pookie. She was more than willing to be the first one to step up, even ahead of the man's family members, because his parents were at this arbitration trial sitting right beside her. She was the first one to want to step up and save White Zaddy's job. It's not like this dude was even facing criminal prosecution. She was trying to get him his job back and was the number one advocate for defending him at this arbitration trial, in spite of what he got caught doing. Which indicates to me, as we said before, just like Madison Amelia, you remember, the bimbo that was being cursed out by her Trump-supporting white boyfriend because he didn't like the fact that she voted for Obama? And he told her to take her black ass back to Africa. These females in general, they know that these white men are racist and evil. As a matter of fact, given the popularity of ghetto gaggers and the fact that even in the year 2019, they're still able to not only get black women to do those scenes, but come back multiple times to do those scenes. I'm inclined to think that they're getting with these white men because they're racist and evil. I mean, if we think about the warped mindset of the black American female and how she will sleep with a Pookie and Ray Ray, a known thug, a known criminal, somebody whose life is going nowhere and whose future is probably on a path to destruction. She gets with these type of dudes like Lauren London with Nipsey Hussle, knowing that it's going to wind up ending one of two ways, usually, with them in prison or in the ground, or if she's not careful with her, in the ground or in prison. It's not so far-fetched to realize that these females would do the same exact thing, getting with dysfunctional, evil, racist white men on the other side of the color line. If they're getting with dysfunctional black men, why wouldn't they get with dysfunctional and evil and criminal white men? Because there's something about degeneracy, danger, evil, ass backwards mentality that attracts these whores. I don't know what it is. Well, I do know what it is, but I'm just saying, in general, as a collective, because each individual case is different, what brings them all together under this one tree of thought that this is okay? It's my, if I wasn't a mind, I'll start to say it's mind boggling, but if it wasn't for the fact that I'm a Marlboro man, it would be mind boggling. And even in spite of the rabbit hole that I have completed walking through, I now understand that there are many more rabbit holes to be walked through. This is more than just one fucking rabbit hole. And this issue between racist and evil white men and dark-skinned black females, not only being with them, fucking them, sucking their dick, swallowing their cum, having their biracial children, but coming to their physical and verbal aid and defense, as we saw in St. Louis, as we heard about in Baton Rouge, as we saw in Florida with this bitch at this arbitration trial. That it's almost like they were made for each other. Like the black woman, like she's painted brown, but she's really white or something. I'm talking about the ones who do this stuff. Because there's no way, given history, or what many people believe they know about history, there's no way you could have that type of relationship with a group of people who you say enslaved you, enslaved your ancestors, tortured your ancestors, that you want reparations from, that you accuse of being the reason why Black America and the Black community looks the way it does today. Yet you can have a group of women from the oppressed tribe so willing and so ready to be the concubines for this dominating, dictatorship like diabolical group of men who have done nothing but show disrespect and disdain for her tribe of men. It is, and I heard you brothers say this, it is almost like they were made for each other. How do you explain this? If you look throughout history, okay, even when the Russians invaded Germany during the Second World War, and they overran the Wehrmacht in Berlin, you didn't see German women running up to, spread their legs for Russian Red Army troops. They were raped. A lot of them were trying to get out of Berlin, but the Nazis wouldn't allow it. They wanted everybody to die like some massive death cult. They wouldn't even let the German civilians leave. And when the Russian Red Army came there, they wreaked havoc. One of the first things they did was rape all the German women that they laid eyes on. Okay? But in the case of particularly so-called African American females, since slavery, we have seen an exact opposite reaction from the so-called oppressed people, where they don't have a problem befriending and even giving birth to the children of what they consider to be their enemy. It doesn't make any sense. Or historically, the group of people who have oppressed them and tormented them. Which is why, y'all recall last year, I laughed in the face, or in the faces, of black women talking about black men need to build something. Build for who? Build for what? Why should I build? Build for a group of women that are going behind my back, sucking the dick of and plotting with my enemy? Or sucking the dick and plotting with a group of men who will shoot me down in the street and then get off scot-free in a courtroom? Sucking the dick and having biracial children with the men who systematically, through political policies and passed laws, prevent me from being a full man in my own community and establishing a strong family structure by enabling welfare policies that only serve to dehydrate an already failing situation in Black America? What am I building for? Hell, did you even know that Jeffrey Dahmer, I remember my dad telling me this back in 1992, during his trial when they caught that bastard murdering gay black men in Milwaukee, when they caught him and put him on trial, there was one black woman who claimed to be a friend of his. Now remember, Jeffrey Dahmer was gay and all his victims were males that he kidnapped, raped, and murdered, and most of them were black males. He moved from Ohio. I think he had like one white victim. All the rest of them were minorities. He moved from Ohio to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to the hood part of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, actually. And he would go to gay clubs and other places where black males congregated. Sometimes he picked up black male prostitutes or transients, and that's how he would get his victims, right? It was one night when he tried to drug this one black guy that wasn't gay, and the black guy whooped his ass and then ran out of the apartment and called the police. And that's how the police caught up with Jeffrey Dahmer. They went back to the apartment and found, half-eaten bodies in barrels and shit. But during Jeffrey Dahmer's trial, there was a black woman, I forget her name. I'm going to go to the library today and I'm going to look up news clippings, old newspaper and magazine clippings of that shit to find a picture of this bitch. She claimed to be a friend that lived in the same apartment block as Jeffrey Dahmer. And she claimed to have gone over his apartment more than a couple of times. And she was actually used by his defense lawyers in his murder trial. She said she didn't see any indications that he was evil or that he was cutting up people and putting them in the freezer or the refrigerator. That they would just sit, on the sofa and watch movies all day. Personally, I think this was a case, of it was equivalent to black women that, fuck down low brothers that are obviously gay. I think her and Jeffrey Dahmer was fucking, and I think that she knew that he was into some weird shit. I don't know if she knew that he had bodies in the apartment, but I think she knew he was into some type of shit, and she wasn't telling. Because she claimed she had no idea that this dude was cutting up and eating black men and putting them in freezers and barrels and under his mattress and all kinds of sick, crazy ass shit. But now, understanding what I understand about this rabbit hole, I'm starting to wonder if that black woman that was with Jeffrey Dahmer, claiming to be his little apartment condo buddy, I'm starting to wonder if maybe she was eating black men with him. Talk to you later, guys.